Let's start this interview right now. I'm Alfred Adask, of course, and my guest is Kent Hovind. And Kent and I are talking. I'm here in Dallas. Kent is in prison, in a jail in Santa Rosa, Florida. And we're going to talk about his problem with the courts, being sentenced, being threatened a second time after he's been in prison for 8 years. He's now being threatened with another prosecution where they're threatening to lock him up for 100 years. We're going to talk about that in the second and third segments of this program. But first, we want to talk about creationism. And the reason is because Dr. Hovind, Kent Hovind, Hovind, was originally called Dr. Dino, in part because he'd spent years arguing in favor of the creationism theory that the world was created as explained in 7 days, or in 6 days, and then seventh day good Lord rested in Genesis. And it's Dr. Hovind's contention that this is not just an allegory, a metaphor. This is what happened. And the reason this is important to me is because, I don't know if Kent remembers this or not, Dr. Hovind remembers, but I published one or two of your articles in my magazine, The Anti-Shyster, back in the 1990s, and I also interviewed you one or two times on radio programs I was doing back then. And you were the first person to introduce me to the idea that evolution might not be as smart as a lot of people suppose. You sensitized me to that idea, and later, 10 years later, basically, in 2006, I was threatened with charges by the Attorney General of the state of Texas for manufacture and distribution of a controlled substance. Substance was colloidal silver. It wasn't heroin or cocaine or whatever, but nevertheless it was the same laws. And it's because Dr. Hovind sensitized me to the significance of Genesis that I was able to draft a freedom of religion defense that stopped the Attorney General's prosecution. He'd invested 6 years and nearly $500,000 on pretrial investigations and pretrial hearings, and there were 6 other defendants long before I even got into the case, but I was the last one. I made a freedom of religion. You saved me fines of $25,000 a day. That's $9 million per year. So the point I'm trying to make is that creationism, some people might think this is a little bit of a goofy concept. I can tell you that it works. All right, this has value in the court system if it's presented properly, and so I'm grateful to Dr. Hovind from, just talking to him 15 years ago now, probably. So, having said that, why don't we talk a little bit about creationism and show people that this is not just some kooky idea. Let's hear a little science, and then in the second and third sections we'll talk about the previous trial and the one that's coming up on March 2nd.
All right. Well, thank you so much, brother, for having me. It's an honor. My name is Kent Hovind. I live in Pensacola, Florida. Right now I'm in the Santa Rosa County Jail, 30 miles from Pensacola. But I was a high school science teacher for 15 years. I taught science and math, biology, earth science, and physical science, and algebra, geometry, trig. And then when I moved to Florida 25 years ago, I saw an article in the paper that said the dinosaur bones were found from 80 million years ago. And so I wrote my first ever letter to the editor, Pensacola News Journal. And I said, no, fellas, these dinosaur bones are from the flood in the days of Noah. Bones don't fossilize unless they're buried right away. And these bones are all together, articulated. You can still tell the shape of it. If animals die in the woods, they get dragged all over by the coyotes. They don't stay together in, skeletal shape. And millions of fossils are found. And I said, so these were probably buried in the flood in the days of Noah. I said, furthermore, the earth is not millions of years old, and that's easy to demonstrate. Well, that was my first ever letter to the editor. And it ignited a firestorm. I was called everything but a white boy for the next six months in that paper as they blasted me back and forth, and I wrote letters to the editor. Finally, the local university, they were reading my articles in their anthropology class at University of West Florida, and one of the students called me and said, Kent, would you like to come debate our professor? I said, well, I've never had a debate in my life except with my wife, and I lose those every time.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
I don't know anything about debate rules and tactics and all that, but I know the subject pretty well. So anyway, so I did my first ever debate, and that led to a full-time ministry. I started getting calls all over the place asking, hey, would you please come speak on our church? And it just rapidly grew, evolved, maybe the right word, into a full-time ministry. And so for nearly 20 years, I traveled all over the world, spoke about 700, 800, 900 times a year. I've done 100 debates at universities now, and I tear them up. Sweetly, of course, in Christian love. Very quickly, I defend the position that the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate in every single detail. God created the world in 6 days. 6 literal, normal, 24-hour days. That's the only way it works. Plants breathe in carbon dioxide and give off oxygen. Animals breathe in the oxygen and give off the CO2. How on earth could one live here for millions of years without the other? We exchange the gases. And so there are thousands of illustrations we could give. But the point would be a creation that takes place in 6 days is the only way that will work scientifically. There are so many thousands of examples of animals and plants that have what are called symbiotic relationships. One animal requires a certain plant to live, and that plant requires a certain animal to pollinate it. And there are just literally thousands of examples. I defend the position the earth is only 6,000 years old, which is what the Bible dates add up to. Actually, the whole universe is only 6,000 years old. And God made it in 6 literal 24-hour days, and then God recorded for us His Word and preserved that Word to the very day. And I have a copy of it right next to me here. This is God's preserved Word of God. So because I take that simple stand that the Bible is true, that makes some people really upset. Well, that's okay. We can talk about it. I can stay calm, and they usually can't. But anyway, in a nutshell, that's my position. I think everything we see today can be explained scientifically by instant creation and a global flood in the days of Noah. We could talk about Grand Canyon if you'd like, or the Great Prairies, or the fault lines in the earth, which earth science is one of my favorites.
I can remember.
Nutshell, brother, I think the creation. Yeah.
I can remember you talking about the idea. People said, "Oh, creationism can't be true because we can see these stars that are millions of light years away." Well, at least light years away. I don't know if it's millions, but regardless, the point is, the light takes all that time to get here. Those stars had to be here 7 million years ago or whatever in order to account for the light waves. And you said, I can remember you explaining that no, it doesn't have to be that way. Good Lord could have created the light at the same time He created the stars. And even though they might be that distance away, they could still have been created on the day of creation, and the light could be here at that time. I don't know if...
Yes, sir. That's one explanation. Yeah, if He can make the star, He can make the light. But
yeah.
Even a simpler one, there are 11 times in the Bible where it says God stretched out the heavens. What if He made the stars closer here and stretched them out to where they are, like the Bible says He stretched them out? Adam and Eve would see the taillights of the stars as they're receding. Suppose the stars are moving away at 95% the speed of light. Today, they may look like they're billions of light years away, but yet only created 6,000 years ago.
I understand.
God stretched out the heavens.
I understand.
Secondly, we do not know that. Yeah, we do not know that the speed of light has always been a constant. There have been many experiments. Just last year, there was in Scientific Magazine, I forget which one, Scientific American, I think, got an article where they slowed light down and stopped it and looked at it. What does light look like when it is stopped? Well, that was just done last year or so.
Well, I saw another report that you may have seen just in the last few months. They landed a satellite on a comet. And what they've determined, up until then, there was a strong theory that comets were just big blocks of snow. They were like big snowballs. Dirty snowballs was the term that some people had used to describe the comets, believing that they were mostly made out of ice. And therefore, they believed that the comets were the source of water that eventually covered most of the Earth. But they got up there and they put a satellite, or they not a satellite per se, but a rocket device. I can't think of the proper term. They landed it on the comet just in the last few months, and they determined nope, there wasn't much ice up there at all. which means where did the water come from on earth? If the earth started as a ball of fire, essentially, molten rock, maybe some people think that, where'd the water come from? I mean, the Bible answers that question, but science cannot answer where'd the oceans come from. How did they happen to be here? All of which suggests that the creationism theory is far more rational than most people suppose. Again, it's not just a myth or an allegory. It is a viable foundation. Now, when you try to present that and do a good job of it, it's one thing for people to talk about these subjects who don't really know or they can't express themselves very clearly. But when someone is able to express these ideas clearly, they pose a threat to a system that is ungodly, anti-godly, and doesn't want people to believe in the Bible. I wonder if you understood at the time how important, how significant the threat was that you posed against the government. Did you have any?
From the St. Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
Did you have any idea of how much of a threat you were posing at the time?
I guess, yes, I know that there's only two philosophies of government. One is based on creation and one's based on evolution. If there's a God, then God decides how we're supposed to behave and how we're supposed to govern each other, if at all. And so that our founding fathers believed that. We have these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal.
Yep.
There's a creator that gives us rights. Those guys don't make good slaves, man. They throw the tea in the harbor and start a war against...
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Nope, I have to call right back, brother.
Yeah, when this call breaks, just for the sake of the audience right now, the call's going to be interrupted briefly. Kent will call right back and we'll start up again another segment. We'll take some commercials between this. They'll be added after you and I talk, Kent, and you call back just as quick as you can and we'll start the second segment, and we're going to do 3 segments altogether. I'm Alfred Adask here with Dr. Kent Hovind, and we will be back in a moment. Please stay tuned. Now you can go ahead and hang up if you haven't already. Okay. All right, I'm talking to Dr. Kent Hovind. He is in prison, actually in jail in Santa Rosa, Florida. He went crosswise with the government 8 years ago. He's been in prison for 8 years, got 2 to go, and the government's trying to charge him with additional crimes that could cost him. They're threatening him with 100 more years in the slammer. We're going to get to that as we go along here. We talked about in the first segment about creationism, which poses a vital mortal threat to the government of the United States. I'm going to tell you why I know that's true. Again, I've been sued by the Attorney General of Texas for $25,000 a day, $9 million a year. I read the relevant laws concerning drugs and the definition of drugs that you can find at Title 21, United States Code, Section 321, and also somewhere in the Florida Code. The definition of drugs includes the phrase man or other animals, which means the government presumes man to be an animal. It doesn't say man or animals, it says man or other animals. I am not a Bible scholar, but I am a Bible student, and I knew that thanks in large measure and to significant measure to Dr. Hovind, I knew that Genesis says on the 6th day God created man in his image and gave man dominion over the animals, which means I can't be an animal. As a Christian or a Jew, I can't be an animal, and I can't be subject to laws that say I'm an animal, and all of the drug laws are based on the presumption that we are animals. And in your case, I believe it was your second offense, 45 counts of structuring that was ultimately tied to drugs. You're in prison in part because you are presumed to be an animal. And the Bible says, no, you're not. You're given dominion over the animals. At least that's one interpretation. Genesis and creationism may provide a defense against those accusations. Does that make any sense to you, Dr. Hovind?
Well, it sure does. Yes, sir. We haven't used that defense, but there's no question in the public schools that the textbooks and teachers often consider students an advanced animal.
Yeah.
We were given dominion over the animals. Yeah, we are not just an advanced animal. And plants have a body, animals have a body and a spirit, and man has a body, a spirit, and a soul. We are indeed very different.
Well, and all of evolution presumes us to be animals. If we subscribe to the theory of evolution, it lays the foundation for presuming you and I are just animals evolved from lower forms on back to whatever microbes started this whole thing going. But you and I, under evolution, we're just animals, and as such, we are not entitled to the God-given unalienable rights declared in our Declaration of Independence. It says on the Declaration, we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. If you didn't get any rights from God, and there aren't any, under evolution, then you have no claim on life, liberty, or the pursuit of happiness. And in the second sentence says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, telling us the purpose of government as envisioned by the founders was to secure our God-given unalienable rights. If the government can presume you to be an animal and get away with it, you have no claim on those rights. They're only for men made in God's image and endowed by their Creator. That's my argument, at least, and in my case, it worked. They dropped a case where they'd invested nearly $500,000 in 6 years, pre-trial investigations and hearings, because the whole war on drugs is based on the presumption that people are animals. However many people you know in the slammer right now that are there on drug-related crimes are there on the fundamental presumption that they are nothing but livestock. Pharmaceutical profits of billions of dollars based on the presumption they're doing drugs. They are based on the presumption you and I are all livestock. Billions, maybe trillions of dollars in profits depend on that definition. Prison industrial complex. There is an enormous consequence if this idea gets out. And the point I'm trying to make with this is that you touched on something that was spectacularly powerful, and you were having success promoting that idea, and eventually some of the great unwashed like myself might figure out how to use it. So we are presuming that your punishment is not simply a question of guilt or innocence, but a question of magnitude. The magnitude of your punishment suggests that you are being hit hard for reasons other than the offense that's alleged. Do you think you're there for political reasons?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think there's any question. If you look at, they did an investigation on me for 9 years, couldn't find anything. I tried to obey all the laws. I'm not a lawbreaker. So when they came and arrested me for structuring, I said, what on earth is that? There's all kinds of details about my case on the website 2peter3.com. Just the number 2, the word Peter, and the number 3. If people want to read all that about the original case. There are also quite a few YouTube interviews up where we've talked about that. I still maintain, like Job in the Bible, I maintain my integrity. I did not break any laws that applied to me. And so I am an innocent man. I've been down 99 months now, and they just moved my trial again another month on this new, really ridiculous charge, mail fraud, which carries a 20-year sentence by itself, and there are 6 charges. They're so desperate to. Yesterday they announced at their pre-trial. We just had a little hearing yesterday, and they said they're going to call 25 witnesses. Well, the government does this when they're desperate. They parade a whole bunch of witnesses up there. For instance, they're probably going to call somebody from Google to testify. They'll make Google spend hundreds of dollars to fly somebody from California in here to testify. Oh yeah, that's the record of the emails or the phone calls. Okay, well, we would agree. Why do you need to?
This call is from the Ruddavis County Sheriff's Office.
Like this preacher that had in his notes for his sermon, he said, "This is a weak point, so yell louder."
Yeah.
That's what the government does when they don't have a case. They throw a whole lot more fluff and snow at it. Let's blind
and
everybody.
see how much sticks to the wall. And see how much sticks to the wall. Yeah.
So And the jury will think, well, hey, he's not guilty. We've got to find him guilty of something. I mean, look at all the money they spent. And they have spent a fortune on this case, and it's for nothing.
Yeah.
It's because
Actually, it's not. I mean, like I say, you may be far more significant than you suspect. You know, your impact may even be growing while you are in prison. There's a little bit, in retrospect, I think Satan, if he had it to do all over again, he might not have put the Messiah up on a cross where he could be seen by all. It's kind of like putting a neon sign, say, look at them. He could be seen by all in time by, instead of just secretly burying him in a hole. They attracted attention, in a sense, with the cross. They have attracted attention to you by putting you in prison under very strange circumstances. And in the end, it may cause your message to be communicated far more widely than might otherwise have been the case. Now, that's perhaps small satisfaction for you, but it strikes me as possible. Do you think it's possible, or am I missing something?
No, you are absolutely dead on. I'm sure not the Messiah. I can promise you that.
No, I understand, but I'm not arguing that point. But you can see, they have attracted attention. Part of the reason I'm asking that is your trial has been postponed now. It was scheduled to come up, and I guess in the next few days, I'm not sure. It's been postponed to March 2nd. Do you think that postponement reflects the political attention that you're attracting right now with the media, with internet, with email, with people contacting congressmen and senators and saying, let's do something about this? Are we generating enough political heat? Are we generating enough?
Political heat.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah, I hope there's a lot of political heat on this case. I don't know what's causing it. This has been postponed now 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
I've been sitting here in county jail for almost 9 months. This is ridiculous. Okay. But Philippians chapter 1, Paul said his bonds, his going to prison, has resulted in the gospel getting out further.
Yep.
So that's all I'm concerned about.
Yep.
I hope so. Yeah, please spread the gospel around.
Well, another thing about this is I've heard you on other interviews, and your voice does not sound sad. It doesn't sound defeated. It doesn't sound bitter. It sounds like you just left the living room from watching a little TV this morning, and you've stepped out into the kitchen to talk to us. And I'd like you to explain. I already know the answer, but I'd still like you to explain to the audience why you're not beaten down by these circumstances.
Well, a good percentage, maybe half the Bible is written either from prison or captivity or people who went to prison or captivity. So I'm in good company. God has been great. I've learned 1,000 things I never would have learned had I not come. I've sure met people I wouldn't have met. We have Bible studies in my room 4 times a day, and I've led 4 men to the Lord this month, about 700 since I've been in prison. And we just really, this is a great fishing hole. They can't get away from me in here. So the spiritual growth has been phenomenal in some of these men. So no, God's been good. He has used it for His glory. I've written a lot of books. I've earned a couple more degrees. I'm certainly older and certainly smarter. I still feel great. God has been just wonderful to me. So, yeah, the prison, as much as I don't like it, as much as I wish it didn't happen, and as much as I'm ready to go home, God. So if you end up going to prison, or anybody does, it is not the end of the world. Don't despair. God.
I've been there for most of a year on one occasion, and I agree. I knew from the beginning, good Lord was putting me there. I never thought He was going to keep me for a year or nearly a year. I didn't think that would happen, but I was quite content. It didn't disturb me in the least to be there, and I told people if I'd known how much I would be blessed by being stuck in that prison, or in that, it was a jail. It was a level 5 maximum security jail. It was a county jail, but it was level 5 maximum security. If I'd known how much I would gain from that 344 days, I would have fought my way in years ago. I didn't like it, don't want to go back, but still, it was blessing. And I understand what you're saying. It's not necessarily the end of the world to get thrown into prison, and while you're there, you've written a number of books, true?
I have 37 books. Quite a few are well, I've been done with them for a long time, but they're in limbo for various reasons. But probably my one of the more important ones is my one where I had to change my doctrine on end times. We are going to be here for the tribulation. I had to, after 40 years, switch from pre-trib to post-trib rapture.
Yep.
And I cover that in my book, What on Earth is About to Happen, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
So if you get a chance, it's on 2peter3.com.
All right.
What on earth is about to happen, for heaven's sake? And I give all the reasons why. The church for 1,800 years believed and taught that post-trib, pre-wrath, rapture. I was guilty of confusing wrath, which is what the world does to us, and tribulation. Wrath is what God does to the world. We're not here for that, but we are here for the tribulation. That's what the world does to us. I was also guilty of confusing the day of Christ, which is the rapture, with the day of the Lord, which is 1,000 years. They are not the same. And so once you get those straight, it just all clicks together like a big Sudoku puzzle, like, whoa, this is it.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
with you.
to answer your question, I have written 37 books, and God's been really good.
All right, now, let's talk about, you were, in your original case, there were 3 charges. Not withholding, 12 counts of not withholding on behalf of people who were working at your facility. You're arguing they were there as private contractors, government saying they're employees. You had 45 counts of structuring, and you had threatening an IRS agent, and if I understand correctly, that threat was taken from you praying for that IRS agent on a radio program. Is that true?
That's the only evidence we could ever get. Exactly when, why, how. Where's the...
This call is from the Ruddavis County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, it was just bizarre. We were just...
You have 60 seconds remaining.
My wife and I both were just shocked. Like, what did we do? Structuring. We went to our own bank and took out our own money and paid our own bills.
Yeah.
Is this a crime now? And actually, yeah, and they used drug laws to say, oh, that money not only was structured, it should be forfeited. And since I don't have any money, and it was spent 5 years ago on church projects, they said, we want to seize the church ministry buildings, which is what they're doing now. That's what this new case is all about. Let me call right back, and we'll discuss all that, brother.
All right, we'll be back with Dr. Kent Hovind in just a moment. Please stay tuned.
All right.
All right, we're back with Dr. Kent Hovind, who is calling in from the Santa Rosa County Jail in Florida, where he's being detained in anticipation of another trial. After 8 years in the slammer, 2 to go, he's being threatened with another trial that could put him away for another 100 years. One of the things, before we get to that, the 3rd count in your first trial was threatening an IRS officer. And you don't seem to understand where that threat was, other than perhaps praying for him on a radio program. My point is, insofar as they charge you with threatening an IRS agent, does that create, or did that create, the impression in the jury's mind that you were prone to violence?
Probably. My attorney said, after they put on their dog and pony show, he said, Kent, don't even give a defense. Don't say a word. You did nothing wrong. The jury can see that. There's no law broken here. Don't even give a defense. I said, okay. And so then, after we closed our arguments, the judge changed the jury instructions from saying if they took out more than 10,000 to saying if they took out less than 10,000.
For structuring.
Well, that's not what the law says. Yeah. That's like saying the speed limit is 70, and they stop you going 68 miles an hour and say, well, you're trying to avoid the speed limit ticket.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That means the real speed limit is 68, it's not 70. And if you go 65, they'll charge you for structuring. That means the real speed limit is 65, not 68. Before you know it, you won't be able to, you'll be arrested for walking on the highway.
Well, and then after trial, the judge said, Kent Hovind, your crime is worse than rape. And everybody in the were like, what? And so then when we finally got the transcript, 16 months after we paid for it.
And you needed it in 12 months to make an appeal. True?
Well, partially true. There are 2 different issues. One involving the 12 months. That was later with the 2255. But that wasn't related. No, I needed it to appeal, but there was not a 12-month limit on this one. That'd take a long time to explain. But yeah, they kept it for 16 months and altered it. Somebody did. And people need to call Congress and say, look, you need to do a full investigation here. What happened in this case? Congress will say, we can't get involved in an active case, or we can't get involved in the Justice Department. They've got 10 reasons why they can't do what they're supposed to do. But yes, they should. They should investigate what happened. If the judge changed the trial transcript, then she needs to be impeached, plain and simple.
Yeah.
They're only appointed to life during good behavior. If she ordered the clerk to do it, she needs to be impeached.
If she allowed it to take place, regardless of who altered it, I'm going to argue that she is responsible for making some sort of a correction. If it's been altered, I would suppose that she should be ultimately responsible for making sure it was corrected again to say what was really there. Somebody's responsible for this.
Well, yeah, but see, they're not going to investigate themselves.
No, I know.
It's going to have to come from. It's got to come from Congress, and Congress won't do a thing unless they get 100,000 phone calls saying, would you do your job, please? Now, it's not my job to judge the judge, but if indeed this happened, then this original trial needs to be overturned, which of course is going to be very embarrassing for them, and they're going to avoid like the plague. And they need to return all the property they stole, and they need to pay the damages, and they need to leave me alone. I wasn't asking for. I was sitting reading my Bible when they came in SWAT team and arrested me. My wife was sound asleep when they surrounded her bed. 4 agents woke her up.
Yep.
Wouldn't let her get dressed, go to the bathroom, or put a robe on, and dragged her down in handcuffs to the courthouse in her nightgown. Yes, I'm a little upset about that. I think any man that loves his wife would be. We've been married 41 and a half years, and they terrorized my wife. I think they need to be terrorized by their own SWAT team, saying, look, you guys have to obey the law like everybody else. You don't change the trial transcript. If you do, you get fired from your job. I put in a complaint of misconduct against my judge and against the U.S. attorney. They are both posted on 2peter3.com and 100 other places, and the people should definitely copy those and preserve them someplace, because it's just a matter of time before somebody comes in and starts shutting down websites that have this information on there. So please copy and disseminate everything. The best place to hide all this stuff is out in the open in a million locations. So
well, I agree. The only time you're in danger is when you're the only one that knows the secret. All right. Once you publicize things and you get them out there dispersed, the government is hard pressed to do anything about it, because if they do, it attracts more attention to whatever it is you're trying to communicate. One thing I know I've learned over the years: the only thing the government fears is public exposure. Now you're having
I come to the conclusion.
You're having some success.
Fear the
They
truth.
don't even fear the truth, in my opinion, unless that truth is publicly exposed. That's what they're concerned about. They don't care what the truth is. That doesn't bother them. But if the public finds out, that bothers them. You're having success at attracting attention right now. Have you had success all along while you were in prison and now in this jail, or has your success increased in recent times?
It's been exponential in the last 6 months because of this new charge, which is so bogus. The same day I filed a complaint of misconduct against the judge and against the U.S. attorney, I wrote up a Liz Pendens, which says, hey, there's litigation pending on this case. Same date, I believe, May. That's what they're threatening with more prison for, is for just notifying people, hey, the property there's litigation still pending. That's what you're supposed to do, is file a Liz Pendens if litigation is still pending, so that the buyer can be aware. You want to buy this property? Well, make sure you know this is still in a lawsuit. Oh, okay.
This call is from the Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
They're claiming I damaged them and tried to extort money. I'm not going to get any money from that. Their whole case is there is no case at all, and they know that. But therefore, they got to make a lot more noise and make it look huff and puff, which is all they're doing.
Who do you think
they've got the guns? I mean, they can.
Yeah, no.
They can put me away.
Yep, that's a fact. There's none of us that are so smart that we can avoid this. All right, if somebody decides they want your scalp on their lodge pole, you're going to need a hat, because they're going to get it. But they have so many people they could go after, they can't go after very many. For example, it's my understanding that they only file about 1,000 criminal charges per year. I'm talking about the Internal Revenue Service. There's a lot of civil cases, but in terms of criminal, when people actually stand to do time, there's only about 1,000 instances across the whole country every year, which is a triviality. Out of 150, 180 million people who should be paying income tax, they file 1,000 a year for criminal. You've got to do something special to get on that, to be among that chosen 1,000, if you catch my drift. They're not doing it alphabetically.
I'm honored.
Well, you know, I saw I saw a copy of, there's a newsletter for United States Assistant Attorney Generals. I think it's USAA, USAAG, I don't recall. I saw it back in the 90s. I don't have a copy of it anymore. But I read it, and I quoted one of the articles in the magazine at the time. They were interviewing a prosecutor who explained the reason they target particular individuals for criminal prosecution. And she explained, for example, they'd had a lot of airline pilots at the time who were not paying income taxes. So what they did is they went after one or two airline pilots, and they busted them. I mean, they hurt them just as bad as they could in order to scare the rest of the airline industry into paying their income taxes. They made the point that they selectively prosecute in order to get the most publicity value possible, all right, to get the most bang for the buck. And the implication, strong implication, is that people like yourself are selectively prosecuted. This isn't just a randomness. I mean, all of that chosen 1,000 are pretty much there on selective prosecution. But in your case, that would have been especially true.
Yeah, I have no evidence for or against that. All I know is I've been in jail 99 months, and I sure did not break any laws. And the Congress needs to call me to testify, and they need to call in the IRS agents that came against me. Because they would send me a tax bill, and I would answer them, and they would never respond. I never got one letter, never one response. I always respond. I pay every tax I owe. If I owe something, please show me. I'll pay it. I'm not a tax protester, but I have said 1,000 times, and I'll say it again. I'm glad our country was started by those guys. They threw the tea in the harbor and started a war. I might have been out there with them. I don't know, but I have other fish to fry. God has called and equipped me to teach people on creation, the scientific evidence for the Bible, dinosaurs, the flood, those kind of things, and now end times. And so I don't have time to fight every battle. So I'm not. The IRS is not my battle. They're the reason I'm in jail, and they need to be shut down, completely shut down. And especially these agents that came against me, they need to be completely examined. What did you do? Who gave you this authority?
This call is from the State of Rosa Sheriff's Office.
I think they clearly broke some laws and violated not only their own laws, but God's laws. And they need to be investigated. Congress should do their job, but they won't unless they get 100,000 phone calls from people saying, look, get on the ball.
Kent, we're going to run out of time here in a moment, and this call is going to be terminated. Do you want to come back for one more segment, or is this enough for you?
I'd love.
If you call back,
I'd love to, brother.
If you got time to do another segment, call in whenever this one ends, and we will start up a fourth segment for this program. I haven't heard.
I'd like to give people some hang on, brother. I'd like to give them some help that'll help them on like the formation of Grand Canyon. Christians wonder, how could that form? Or like the starlight was just one. And where do dinosaurs fit in? We have a lot of stuff on drdino.com and 2peter3.com that people can get and copy. We've seen probably 100,000 people get saved watching those crazy videos. They're in 40 languages. So please use them. It blesses my soul to know that my prison time gets more people to know about the gospel and about the creation ministry. So it's definitely Philippians 1. My bonds are make the gospel go out further. Please, brother, I'll be honored to call back. We got a bunch of topics hanging, though. So which one was next on your list there?
I don't have a list anymore. We've pretty much touched on it. Wherever you want to go in this fourth segment, and this will be the last segment, it will pretty much consume the hour for us. You go ahead and however you want to outline it in the segment that will start just a couple of minutes. We're going to take a little break here for while the phones get reconnected, and we will be right back on the American Independence Hour with Dr. Kent Hovind. Please stay tuned. All right, we're back with Dr. Kent Hovind on the American Independence Hour. Dr. Hovind is talking to us from inside the Santa Rosa, Florida County Jail, where he's being kept in anticipation of a trial. They're threatening to send him to prison for another 100 years. He's already been sentenced to 10, served 8, and they're threatening to come after him for another 100 years. Dr. Hovind wanted to talk about, well, you just go with it wherever you want to go. This is the last segment now. We'll have 12, 14 minutes, however much they give us, and run and gun, Dr. Hovind.
Hey, man, thank you, brother, first of all, for having me and for having this program. I've always appreciated your outreach, trying to spread the truth, man. People need to know. I think that evil people fear the truth more than anything, and that's all. I love the Lord. I've been a Christian 46 years now, and I just want to serve Him and please Him. And if coming to prison does that, well, okay. Joseph did not want to go to prison, I'm sure, as a 17-year-old and spend 13 years in Egyptian prison, but God used it in a great way. I'm sure Daniel did not want to be neutered and go to Babylon and serve 70 years, but, well, he did, and God used it in a great way. So I'm honored that God would do something with my life, and that's all I've ever wanted to do for 46 years. In the book of 2 Peter, chapter 3, which is, we have a website, 2peter3.com, in that 2 Peter 2:3, it says, the scoffers in the last days, and we have a bunch of them in the world today who scoff at the Bible. These scoffers are going to be willingly ignorant. In the Greek, that means dumb on purpose.
Yep.
They like being stupid. Okay, they are willingly ignorant on 3 things, it says in that passage. They're ignorant about the creation. They don't understand what the world used to be like. Why did they live to be 900 years old before the flood came? Read Genesis chapter 5. They lived to be 900. Okay, why? And they don't understand the flood. Where did that water come from? Where did the water go? What did it do while it was here? What's the evidence of a worldwide global flood? And they don't understand the coming judgment of God on this planet. So the creation, the flood, and the coming judgment are 3 just critical issues.
Well, I agree. Most people look back at creationism and they think that it is, again, some sort of a myth, just a charming Jewish fairy tale.
Recording here back in my ear.
Okay, I can't hear that myself. I don't hear the. Well, go ahead,
I
Doc.
heard some kind of commercial sounded like.
Well,
Anyway, I'll let you fix that. Anyway, if Christians understood the importance of the creation, they would understand a lot of things, including their responsibility to God.
Yeah.
I've asked atheists all over the country. I've done 100 debates, and I've had over 4,000 turn me down, refuse to debate me for any amount of money. So if somebody wants to, say, hey, line up, man, Kent will take you. I'll take on 10 at a time if I get half the time, and we talk about one topic at a time. That's my only 2 rules. But see, if the creation story is true, then God makes the rules. He's the owner. He's the master. He's the boss. He can say and do what he wants, and people don't like that idea. They don't want God telling them what to do. And so I've asked atheists all over the world. I say, guys, I got a simple question for you. If evolution is true, how do you tell right from wrong? On any topic. Is abortion right or wrong? Is premarital sex right or wrong? Is extramarital sex right or wrong? Is infanticide right or wrong? Was Adolf Hitler right or wrong? Joseph Stalin? I mean, before you decide what's right and wrong, you need to decide how you decide. Do we decide right and wrong based upon what you think in your head? Or do we decide right and... Is there an absolute standard someplace? Where is the standard? Where is the thus saith the Lord? See, the atheists don't have a thus saith the Lord. So they all do what's right in their own eyes. And it brings chaos to the world. Yeah. Governments have to be run on an absolute standard. This is the law. This is what you do. The speed limit is 70. And we post it. And everybody knows the speed limit is 70 because it's posted. God not only gave the law, He published it abroad and He posted it, and it's in a book, and you can read exactly what you're going to face on Judgment Day by reading God's Bible, which millions have died to preserve for us to this very day. So, if evolution is true, there is no standard of right and wrong.
That's right.
And I've never had an atheist. Well, I had one atheist answer the question, but his answer was stupid. I said, "How do you tell right from wrong?" He said, "I decide what's right and wrong." He said, "I am the God of my own universe."
Well, then
I
that's
said, well, boy,
very
I'm glad
nice.
to hear
But what happens if he runs into another god out on the street after dark? He's liable to get his universe
Well,
thumped.
he did that day with me. I said, "Well, son, I'm glad to hear because I'm the God of my own universe, and I decided I'm going to come down there and kill you in 5 seconds."
Exactly. The
He said,
whole
"You can't do that." I said, "Why not?"
the,
Yeah, where's the right? Where's the right and wrong?
the only right and wrong that you can find in evolution is survival of the fittest, which means might makes
Exactly
right. You can do whatever you want if you're big enough to impose your will on other people. And if you're not big enough, you are subject to whatever anyone else wants to do. You know, for evidence of this, you can look at Genesis 9:6. And Genesis 9:6 explains why you can't murder a man. You can go ahead and kill cows and pigs and sheep and goats and fish and birds and whatever else, chickens and all that, no problem. You can't kill a man. Why? Because he's made in God's image. This has been the foundation. They tell you that in the Bible, Genesis 9:6. Can't kill a man because he's made in God's image. Unless he's violated God's law. But you can't just go out and knock somebody off like you'd kill a cow or a goat. It's because he's made in God's image. If none of us are made in God's image as declared in creationism, we are all targets for easy death. Evolution leads us to genocide. Evolution leads us to concentration camps, mass murder. It's all there in evolution. It is the logical consequence. If you don't have that Bible and those fundamental ideas, you're going to live in a much more dangerous and violent world.
Amen.
Yeah. Let me give you one more that you may already know. Do you ever read Genesis 1:1? Genesis, the first verse in the Bible? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Do you know the significance of that?
Read it millions.
I'm sure you have.
Read it millions of times.
And what do you think it means? Here's what it means. Here's my notion on it. Here's my notion on it. We celebrate the idea that the Creator owns the creation We celebrate the idea that the Creator always owns His creation in our modern patent laws and our copyright laws. When Genesis 1 says, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth," it means He owns the whole shebang by virtue of the act of creation. And therefore we're all subject to His laws, and He can do whatever He wants. It's a statement of legal title. It's not just a little line like, "Once upon a time there was a beautiful fairy princess who lived in a castle," or "It was a dark and stormy night." It's not just an introduction. It's a statement of legal title, and it's the first it's the first verse in the Bible. Do you follow that, Kent?
Oh, absolutely. One little minor correction. It should be heaven singular, not heavens plural.
Okay.
It's 1:1. The King James is the only Bible to get it right. It says heaven singular, and there's a long reason for that. I published in an article up on 2peter3.com back a couple of years ago. But that's a different topic.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, brother. That's excellent. That's his claim, his title.
Yeah.
Psalm 24, same thing. The earth is the Lord's.
Yeah.
Psalm 24, it's his.
And so are you and I by virtue of being created by God, and particularly in His image, which gives us great advantages and obligations. Why don't we talk about who people can talk to or reach in order to help you and help generate some more public awareness of your situation?
Okay, there is a loop of people that are helping spread information about what's going on, and like I have said, we need to hide this in the wide open. I have nothing to hide. All Gideon had for weapons was light and noise.
Yep.
Shine the light and make a lot of noise. An enemy will fight each other, which is what happened in Gideon's case and in Jehoshaphat's case in 2 Chronicles 20. You just say, "Lord, help me," and shine the light and let them go fight each other, which I'm hoping Congress does their job and goes, and I hope they all fight each other and they let me go. I want to go back to preaching. But the secretary, volunteer secretary, is Laura Beth, LauraBeth, 1611 at yahoo.com. They can email her and say, "Add me to the loop." Or they can go to 2peter3.com and talk to the webmaster there and say, add me to the loop. I want to be kept up to speed on what's happening. My trial was supposed to be September, the first week of September. Then they moved it to October, then November, then December, then January, then February, and now March. They keep dragging me out.
They know it's a stupid trial. They probably even know they're likely to lose. Do you think they can stall this off until you get out of prison? Your sentence is over? 2 more years?
No, well, my sentence was last February, a year ago. I should have gone to halfway house. This February, next week, I should be going to home confinement. With the Bureau of Prisons, a 10-year sentence means you serve 87% of it, so you serve 8 years, 7 months. But the last 6 months, you're allowed to go home. And so I would serve 8 years and 1 month, which means I'm done. And you're allowed 12 months of halfway house, which is 3 blocks away from my house, which is a money-making racket which needs to be investigated. They could have, a year ago, sent me to halfway house and did not. Because the Bureau of Prisons, they operate their budget based on body count, and they need me here because I have a warm body. That's the only reason.
I understand.
It's a really evil money-making system.
Well,
God never authorized prison at all. There shouldn't be any prisons. Either fine them, beat them, or kill them. That's God's law. The heathen had prisons, the Egyptians and the Romans. But when I become king, I'm shutting the whole prison system down. At least by an option. Hey, look, you want 20 lashes or 5 years? Everybody would pick the 20 lashes. And it's a better deterrent for the crime, and it's a whole lot cheaper. Because right now, you are paying for my supper.
Yeah, I know.
What did you do?
I understand. Do you think it's worse being in prison or being in that county jail?
Oh, it is 1,000 times worse in the county jail.
I understand.
The prison camps are like college dormitories. They're a pure waste of time. I would shut them off.
This call is from the Ruddavis County Sheriff's Office.
The prison camps I've been at, they have no fence around them. You can walk away anytime you want. You've got libraries, you've got running track, you've got tennis courts. It's like a college dormitory. And I'm glad they do that. It's much more comfortable. The county jail is extremely restrictive, and I've been here for 5 months straight. Well, They took me out of Maxwell Air Force Base. I was only there 5 days. Dragged me out to county jail. Never told me why. They kept me there for a month, and then moved me to the Atlanta Holding Center, which is probably the armpit of the whole system, where you're locked in your little tiny room all day. You get out 1 hour a day, 5 days a week. During that hour, you got to take a shower, exchange your laundry, try to see your counselor if the line is less than a half a mile long, and email and send email if there's, again, you can get through the line. You got 1 hour a day, and otherwise you're locked out.
We've got about a minute left at the most, so if there are any final remarks that you want to add, contact information again, might have 60 seconds.
Okay. Yes, sir. Okay, yeah, get on 2peter3.com. I think the whole purpose of all of this, though, is so much bigger than people realize. Yeah. God wants everybody to get saved. He loves you. He wants people to come to know the Lord Jesus Christ. And the most important thing in my life for 46 years has been spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ. I want people to get saved and then get knowledgeable and then get fired up and go do something with it. Tell others. So if my imprisonment causes people to get motivated to do that, please do. People can get my videos and spread them. You can make all the copies you want. A guy in Dallas there has the record. He's made 41,000 copies of my videos and given
What's his name?
Has seen thousands. Jeff, you caught me off guard. He's been a missionary to Honduras.
All right, well, we'll do that another time, but I thought it might have been, I didn't know if it was Rudy Davis or not. I know Rudy's and his wife Erin have been helping you, if I understand correctly. And we certainly want to help them. I certainly want to express my appreciation for Rudy and Erin for... we have 60 seconds left. I want to express my appreciation for Rudy and Erin for helping to make this interview possible. I want to thank Dr. Hovind for being on the program. I want him to understand, as I'm sure he does, but there are others of us, we understand that your incarceration, your imprisonment has ultimately been a tribulation for you, but it has been a blessing for certainly thousands of others, probably hundreds of thousands of others, maybe millions of others. A great deal of goodness has come from this, although difficult for you, but blessing for many of the rest of us. Dr. Kent Hovind, thank you for being on the program. May the good Lord bless you and all the members of your family and your ministry. And with that, we'll talk to you another time. Thank you, Dr. Hovind. Bye-bye.
Thank you, brother. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.